and the Digor literary language was abolished and replaced by a standard literary Iran. We will now have a look at the Ossetian diaspora in Turkey. After a number of Ossetians joined the Muhajir movement and left the Caucasus due to various reasons, an Ossetian diaspora emerged in regions of the former Ottoman Empire and today's Republic of Turkey. On Thursday, Betül already spoke about the Circassian diaspora in Turkey and the reasons of their mass exodus, so I will not further get onto this. The number of the Muhajirs is vague. It reaches from 20,000 up to 30,000, but there are no official statistics. The main reason for this is the close contact of the Ossetians to other North Caucasian peoples, mainly Circassians. Additionally, peoples from the North Caucasus are designated by the collective term Circassian in Turkey, and many Ossetians adapting to this term call themselves Cherkes. An even smaller number of Ossetian Muhajirs can be found in Syria and Jordania. In Turkey, minorities have been exposed to repressive policy after the establishment of the Turkish Republic. And among these repressions were laws such as the language law that prohibited any other language than Turkish, the head law that didn't allow traditional headgear and led to the replacement of all traditional clothing by Western clothing, as well as the surname law that postulated Turkish names and surnames and prohibited non-Turkish names. Despite the latter law, the North Caucasian diaspora in Turkey, where tribe names play a crucial role, passed their tribe names orally to their offspring. And naturally, these factors led to the loss of the heritage language in many communities. And nowadays, most of the minority languages in Turkey are endangered. Even though the number of Ossetians in Turkey is not known, some sources claim that around the 1870s, there were more than 5,000 Ossetians living only in the vicinity of Kars in eastern Anatolia. It is assumed that approximately 120 Ossetian family tribes or clans could be found in Turkey, and it is to be expected that this number decreased drastically. There were estimated 32 Ossetian villages, mono as well as multi-ethnic, in various vicinities of Turkey. And from these villages, only 3 mono-ethnic, mainly mono-ethnic villages remain. These are Poyrazlı, Digor village, and Boyalık and Karabacak, which are Iran-speaking villages. All other villages disappeared because the inhabitants migrated to bigger cities, and the villages are nowadays inhabited by other ethnicities. Anatolian Ossetic and Caucasian Ossetic are intelligible, and the differences are limited to lexemes that were introduced in the past century and a few grammatical differences. The last generation of L1 Anatolian Ossetic speakers is the generation born around 1980, which is also the last generation born in the village and growing up with the language. The younger generation, and hereby I mean the generation that is younger than 30 and that predominantly lives in the cities, usually doesn't speak Ossetic, and only a few youngsters understand it. The last remaining Ossetian villages are still inhabited, and there are still children growing up which speak the language, but to my knowledge, their number is no more than 15 children or teenagers. In the third part of this presentation, we will take a look at a number of examples from Anatolian Ossetic, written Anatolian Ossetic. So, as I already mentioned, and as you might recall, the Digor literary language used Arabic characters. There is not much preserved from that period. There are mainly gravestones with Arabic inscriptions in the Caucasus, but however, recently a letter that was addressed to a villager from Poyrazlı has been brought to my attention. The script, the manuscript, is written in modified Arabic script, and hence is the oldest known manuscript of Anatolian Ossetic and of Ossetic written in Arabic script. The manuscript was a letter that was signed on the Islamic year 1368, which corresponds with the Gregorian year of 1949. and was written by Batarki Hajimurat, a late refugee who fled the Soviet Revolution. The letter is written in Nigor Ossetic, and Hajimurat gives the recipient, which is a resident of Poyraz, the best wishes for the month of Ramadan, which is, as you might know, which has a special role for Muslims. Anatolian Ossetic is an orally passed language, and the orthography is thus not standardized. There have been attempts to introduce a standardized script based on the Turkish Latin alphabet, but these approaches did not achieve an effect. It was due to the digitalization that they started writing their language on social media and on fast messaging services like WhatsApp. And I analyzed several written examples and was able to find patterns in the use of the Turkish alphabet, and eventually could assign Ossetian phonemes to the graphemes of the Turkish alphabet. So please note that this alphabet is not representative for the whole diaspora and only shows the regularities that I found during my investigations. And it is also possible to encounter degraphs, especially when it comes to phonemes that have no correspondence in Turkish. But already here we can see that there are several graphemes that can express more than one phoneme. These are, as you might see, mainly affricates that also do not exist in Turkish, but there are also plosives and fricatives and ejectives. In the upcoming examples, the first line gives the original written example of Ossetic, and the second line is the sentence written according to the orthographic rules in Ossetia. Example 1 exemplifies how grapheme C can express different phonemes even in the same word. So it's written Khutsaudi Asarajiwat, M as a name, Chirawza Ra'arfa Kotai that Sarambom Birawat. In Khutsaudi, the C is a voiceless alveolar affricate, and Chiravza, it represents a voiceless palatal-alveolar affricate in the onset and a voiced alveolar affricate in the final syllable. And in Datsaran, here, it again stands for a voiceless alveolar affricate. As you might have already noted, some lexemes from the first line correspond to two lexemes on the second line. So these three examples, Turkitsarak Giron Adın Wazak Adımştı, Sizabach Chijgu, and Achbol Khargada Zagin Zahdonsa. The reason why they are written like this is very interesting. Clitic elements are not analyzed as independent lexemes and are therefore expressed by a single word. In example 2, we have the copula of the third person plural. In the second example, it is the third, it's the copula of the third person singular. And in the fourth example, these are the copula for the second person and the clitic pronoun in the dative case. Such examples show us that these clitic elements indeed bear no independent accent, which paves the way for further research questions regarding the accentuation rules of Ossetic. Nonetheless, some other examples show the complete opposite. So in example 5, Khusau Shamarima wont, case endings, as in this examples, are sometimes analyzed as separate elements. This very example, however, might as well be the result of Turkish influence. The Iran-Ossetic commutative suffix ima looks very similar to the Turkish commutative postposition ile, which can also be suffixated as, for example, arabayla instead of araba ile, with a car or with the car. Or this might be as well just a coincidence, since there have been some other occasions where informants asked me informants who are familiar with the Cyrillic script asked me if the phrases they wrote were correct. And there have been occasions where case endings of, for example, the elative were written separately too. And hereby I already conclude. So we had a glimpse at the history of Ossetology and have seen that the first printed book in Ossetic was the Catechism from the late 18th century. We have also seen that the official alphabet in the Republic of North Ossetia is based on the Cyrillic script, and that there is an Ossetian diaspora in Turkey whose language is severely endangered. And we have also seen that it can lead to interesting findings if a language community has a part that never had any education in the language, nor has a writing system. Here are some references, and thank you very much for your attention.